it's been a little while since I filmed one of these videos, so you might want to grab a cup of tea. It's been a while since I filmed one of these videos, and that is because I read a lot of books that I really didn't enjoy, and I didn't want to upload a video just basically saying 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, so I thought I'd wait until I'd read a few more books that I actually enjoyed before I filmed one of these videos again. So I've got a few that I enjoyed, and I'm still going to mention the ones that I didn't, so I'm just going to start grabbing them in random order, and there's a couple of audiobooks as well. So like I said, you might want to grab a cup of tea. I'm not sure how long this is going to be, but hopefully I'll manage to make it not too long. The first book that I'm going to discuss was an audiobook, and it was America's Most Haunted Neighborhood by David Domine. I gave it a 1 star, and that is because I didn't actually finish it. It was a DNF because, so while the story was somewhat interesting, it wasn't enough to hold me, especially with the narrator. I really didn't get on with the voice narrator of this audiobook. I found it to be really irritating. Every couple of seconds he was taking really long poignant pauses and answering things and then continuing his sentence as if it was a question. So for example, you'd have something along the lines of, sometimes on the streets of Old Louisville we would hear noises from down the road, and I would be stood there wondering and thinking, what has happened? And for a whole audiobook, it was pretty annoying. The second book that we're going to talk about is this one. It's Gemini, and it is the second Illuminae book. I was really excited to get my hands on this. As soon as it was released, I went and bought it from Waterstones. You know the drill. It's all set up like with like novel form, and it has a lot of illustrations with writing in it and things. It's a really interesting setup of a book, and it is a sci-fi. I'm not normally into sci-fis, but saying that, I have really enjoyed Gemini and Illuminae, and so I've been thinking maybe I will enjoy a bit of sci-fi. And I've been thinking as well, also, if any of you have got any sci-fi recommendations along the lines of something to do with maybe a horror style, maybe alien-esque type book or something like that, leave them down below, because I think I would enjoy that. Because I really like things like, I really like sci-fi films such as Terminator and Signs and things sort of where it crosses from sci-fi into horror or thriller. I think I'd really enjoy that. So if you've got any recommendations, leave them below. This was a 4-star read. I really enjoyed it. I got through it pretty quickly. And so now I'm left wondering, do I actually like sci-fi, or is it just these 2 books have been so brilliant and it's been a one-off? Who knows, because these are the only sci-fi books I've ever read. Next up was another audiobook, and it was The God Delusion. I downloaded that because a lot of people a few years ago seemed to be reading it, and where I was living at the time there was a few different neighbours who were reading it at the same time, and I'd never read it, and I kept seeing it pop up on things where people had put it as forward thinking or anything like that, and it came up on my daily deals on Audible, and so I downloaded it, and it was another 1 star. I found it really boring, and I'm not really. And it's not that I wanted to sort of debunk the myth of God or anything like that. It was just a purely interest-based purchase, because a lot of people had talked about it and said it was really quite eye-opening. I didn't find it eye-opening, didn't find it interesting at all, and I found the arguments just to be sort of rehashed, the same argument over and over again. It was just basically using any little argument to support their argument, which obviously, I mean, it is their book and that you'd understand that, but I was expecting a little bit more of a debate by the way people raved about it, and so I didn't enjoy it. It was a 1 star, and I found the audio to be really, really boring. The next book that I read was another audiobook, and that was Violated by Sarah Wilson, and it is a true story of a girl who was in the Rotherham sex scandal. If you're not from the UK or you don't know about the Rotherham sex scandal, it was in Rotherham a few years ago, which is in the north of England. There was a huge scandal where it turned out a lot of men, predominantly from the Asian community, had been grooming young girls for the sex trade, and there was a huge scandal about it, and it was all in the news, and this is the story of one of the girls who was caught up in that scandal, and her true story. And I like listening to people's true life accounts, I like listening to people's stories, and I found it really interesting, really eye-opening, and quite a harrowing read. She basically, as you can guess, she was trafficked for sex at a young age, and it looks really into the effects of sort of abusive relationships and essentially grooming of young girls, and it looks into how the young girls are actually approached, how they're sucked into this world and they're part of it without even realising they're part of it, and I found it to be very interesting, and it was something that I thought was a very important read. I enjoyed it as an audio read. The girl who narrated it, her voice was very easy to listen to, and I was hooked on this from the moment that I started listening to it, and I finished the whole audiobook in 2 days and gave it 5 stars. The next book that I've got to discuss is another grim one, and that is Asking for It, which is The Alarming Rise of Rape Culture and What We Can Do About It by Kate Harding. This was a 3-star read. Again, I wasn't too gripped by it, but I wasn't really too much of a fan of the writing style in it, which is one of the things that let it down for me, so it was only a 3-star read. It is again non-fiction, and it looks at rape culture predominantly in the US. The next one is You by Carolyn Katniss. Everybody seems to love this. I have seen so many 5-star reviews of this, and unfortunately I gave it a 1 star, which was not as I was expecting. I found this a chore to get through. I really didn't like it, and it just left me feeling really not very, I didn't like it. I was just left feeling really empty, really not very happy after reading this, and I know it's a thriller. I love thrillers. There was just something about this that creeped me out to the point where I didn't enjoy it. I just found it not a good read, to be honest. And so I'm just wondering what everyone else loved about it, because everybody's raved about it. I've heard so many good reviews of this that I thought it was going to be excellent, but no, it just wasn't for me. If you don't know what this is about, sorry, this is about a girl walks into a bookshop, and the man in the bookshop takes an instant liking to her and begins to stalk her, basically. What bothered me mostly about it was, it personally reminded me of someone I used to know, and it was a little too close to home for me and a little too creepy, and for that reason I just couldn't get on with it, so it was a 1 star. The next one that I'm going to talk about is this one, Night Shift by Debbie Gliouri. I think that's how you say her name. I apologise again, I'm so bad at pronouncing last names, but there you go, that's how you say her name. I mentioned this in my haul video a month or so back, and it is an illustrated depiction of depression. Depression is symbolised by a dragon in this book, and I found it to be a really interesting eye-opener into mental health. And I've never suffered with depression myself, but I've had a lot of friends who have done, and I found this to be really interesting, and it really helped me sort of identify and understand a little bit more what they actually go through when they've been suffering from depression. And it is very beautifully illustrated, and it is a very beautiful book. It is sort of a cloth lining, and I just think it's so beautiful, and I loved it. And so if you suffer from depression, or you know someone who does, this is an absolutely brilliant quick read, and it would make a lovely gift, or just something to buy yourself to maybe understand what other people go through. And for that reason I gave it 4 stars, and I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read was another audiobook by Harry Keeble called Baby X, Britain's Child Abusers Brought to Justice. This was another 5-star read. I was recommended this book by Audible after I'd finished my Rotherham audiobook, and it was brilliant. It looks into the life of the social services and the police that work alongside the social services, the police and the Child Protection Agency, and I found it really interesting. It gave many case studies and lots of things that you don't actually realise are going on, all in one area of London, which is shocking and scary, but also the amount of work that is going into protecting Britain's children is brilliant. Child Protection actually have travelled abroad and to help children who have been in the UK, and they'll actually go abroad to get these children back or to help with the ongoing cases. And I found that to be really inspiring, because a lot of the time you hear a lot of bad things about social services, and you hear a lot of whenever you see social services or child protection in the news, it tends to be where a child has been let down, and it sort of leaves an idea that not a lot is being done to protect children. But this audiobook really helped debunk that for me, and the amount of work and hard work that goes into protecting the children, and the cases in this book where children have actually been saved were brilliant, and I enjoyed it. And again, it's something that I'm interested in. I'm interested in crime, I'm interested in people's true life experiences, and so this was a brilliant read for me, audiobook, so a brilliant listen, and I enjoyed it, and so for that reason I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I've got is this one, and again this is a another book that's been doing the round on booktubes. People have been absolutely loving it. I will say I gave this a 3-star. It wasn't as good as I was hoping because a lot of the points are actually just rehashed over and over again, I found personally, such as the use of candles. When I first read about candles in this book and the strategic placing of them and using them to sort of make your house and things more cozy, it actually spurred me on. I bought some more candles and my house now feels a hell of a lot more cozy. But the the candle thing was mentioned over and over and over and over and over again, and I just thought it was actually a few things like that were used to just fill out the book and pad it out a bit. But again, I really enjoyed it, and for the fact that it is a very pretty book, it looks beautiful, it's got lots of lovely illustrations inside of it, and so even with the repetition problem I still enjoyed it, and it got 3 stars. Next up was No Time for Goodbye by Linwood Barclay. This was recommended by a viewer and I picked it up from eBay and I got stuck into it and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because a lot of the thrillers that I've read have actually had a female main character, whereas this was written from the perspective of a man, and I enjoyed that, and it was something a little bit different to normal. So it's about a girl whose family disappeared when she was 14 or 15 I think, and she got up one morning and they were all gone, and it is 20 years later, and they're sort of reopening the case, re-looking at it, and it's told mainly from the perspective of the woman's husband, and it was very interesting. It was a page turner. I was really gripped by this, and as the story unfolds it just gets more and more gripping, and it is a page turner, so I really enjoyed this. That's 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was another audiobook, and it was Who Are You by Megan Henley, and it is another true story about a girl who meets someone on Facebook, befriends them, and then finds out they're not everybody who she thought they were. I gave this 3 out of 5 without giving away any spoilers. She says in her book that a lot of people won't understand how she was so duped by the man and how she got carried away, and she said, but you can't understand it unless you were in that situation yourself. I agree with that. I agree that you can be duped by people and that you wouldn't realise what was going on, and maybe to an outsider it would look pretty obvious, but when you're embroiled in it you might not realise yourself because you're so into it you can't see the bigger picture. I understand that, but there were a lot of parts of this that that just, to me, I couldn't get on with. I couldn't get on with some of the things that she did. There was parts of it where she said that the man that she was currently with wasn't being too nice to her daughter from a previous relationship. That to me would be an instant reason that I would not want to be in that relationship anymore, regardless of the rest of the crap that was going on in the book. A lot of the things that didn't add up. There's no way that I would have been in a relationship like that with when I had children, and so it was things like that that I didn't get on board with. I can understand how people can become victims and things, but I won't say too much because I don't want to be too harsh on the woman, but there were a few things where I just was a little bit frustrated. Yeah, so that is Who Are You by Megan Henley if you're interested. So the next book that I'm going to talk about is Kill Me Again by Rachel Abbott. I need not say how much I love Rachel Abbott's writing style, Rachel Abbott stories. She's absolutely amazing, and this book was no different. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me, and I really enjoyed it. And it's about a woman called Maggie Taylor, and she arrives home one day from work. This is spoiler free, you can find all of this out on the back, but she arrives home from work one day and finds out that her husband Duncan has basically left the premises and left her 2 young children in the house by themselves, and he's unreachable by phone or anything like that. He's taken his belongings and he's gone. So she doesn't know where he's gone, so for a day or so she's wondering where he is, what on earth has happened, and then a woman who looks bizarrely like Maggie is found dead, and so when the detectives start coming in to investigate what's going on, Maggie realises that she actually knows very little about Duncan's past, her husband, and she starts to wonder what is actually connecting all of this and what's going on. Again, it was another brilliant fast-paced read. It was interesting. It goes very into the police work, and it goes also into the lives of the victims and the criminal underworld, and I just love this. Another page turner from Rachel Abbott, and yeah, Kill Me Again is definitely something to pick up if you're into thrillers. Don't neglect Rachel Abbott's books. If you're into thrillers, you need to read them. They're brilliant. The next book that I'm going to talk about is this one, which is Beyond Belief, and that is by Jenna Miscavige Hill. This is a book about a girl who is brought up in Scientology, in the Sea Org part of it, which is apparently it's one of the strictest parts of the Scientology religion, and it is her life story about how she was about how she grew up in Scientology, how it affected her life, how she hardly saw her parents, and how that is just the norm for children growing up in the Sea Org or in Scientology. Now, I bought this after seeing a recommendation on a booktuber's channel. Again, I think I mentioned in my haul that I can't remember who it was, but I enjoyed this. It was 3 out of 5 stars, and it was quite an interesting look at the world of Scientology. Usually Scientology is very hidden away and we don't get to know a lot of what's going on, and for me, if there's something that I don't know what's going on, I kind of want to know, and so this was just the right amount of information for me. It was enough to sort of satisfy my curiosity, but not too much that I felt overwhelmed by the information. So I enjoyed this in the fact that I now know a little bit more about what goes on, a little bit more about the auditing process, which is something that is mentioned in any discussions on Scientology that you've seen on TV. But for me, it was something that I just didn't know a lot about, and I was interested to know more, like why are they asked so many questions, what do they do, how often do they go through it, how do they get onto the next level of knowledge in Scientology, and this book sort of opens your eyes to a lot of that and a lot of what goes on. It was 3 out of 5 stars because, as far as I can see, nothing actually remarkable happened in this. Obviously she had quite a hard life and she was separated from her parents, so that in itself is pretty horrible, and it obviously isn't the norm in the world outside of Scientology. But for a lot of books that I've read about cults and things, this was actually on the more tame end of the scale, but it's still also quite interesting the lengths that Scientology will go to stop you from speaking out against Scientology, and they will also separate you from your family and not let you speak to your family who are still in Scientology should you leave, because you become known as a suppressive person and you're not allowed to speak to people still in Scientology, which I found to be quite shocking. I didn't know that. And she does a little bit of name dropping in this. I know Lisa Marie Presley is mentioned in this, Tom Cruise is, and so yeah, it was an interesting read. Definitely one to pick up if you want to know a little bit more about Scientology, but if you're looking for something groundbreaking that's going to sort of leave you with a huge wow feeling, this perhaps isn't the one for you. It was just sort of middle of the road, but it was quite interesting at the same time. And finally, the last book that I'm going to mention is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I finally got round to reading it, and it was 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it. As I said before, I have the illustrated version, which is beautiful. It has so many pretty pictures in it, and I loved reading it. I haven't read the Harry Potter books previous to the illustrated ones starting to appear on the shelves, and I know that this is the second one that is out and there are no more yet, but I have seen the Harry Potter films and I'm a huge fan of Harry Potter, and so I can't wait to read the next one when it eventually comes out, which will probably be around the autumn time, I would think, because the rest of these will come out around autumn. So yeah, that is all of the books that I've read recently. If you managed to stay right till the end, well done, because it took a long time to get here, but thanks for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!